I'm Tamar Yoseloff, and I'm here in London Cinema Museum with author Claire Crowther. And Claire, I wanted to ask you first, what is it about silent cinema that's inspired you for this new book?
Silent cinema, I think, is something which is largely forgotten. It was a very brief period. It was 1900 to 1930. Classic silent cinema. Of course, silent films are made now, but and they are wonderful too. But this little period of an art form which was new and was taking the world by storm and making extraordinary, grainy, shadowy images of people saying things that actually weren't coming out appealed to me terrifically. It reminded me of poetry.
And that's interesting. So how did you then create the poems from those extraordinary images?
I fell in love with it, so I went into a period where I watched 2 or 3 silent films every day.
Wow.
And often watched the same film over and over again, and just allowed it to speak to me. And because I've been writing poems about women a lot, and because women are hugely central to silent film, they star in it and they became very iconic figures to the public at large. They largely were the audience for silent film. They also directed it. People don't realise or remember that, but there were great women directors at the time, and they theorised about it, and they understood the expressive potential of film, which was silent anyway at the time, and they didn't actually question that, before 1930 really.
That's fascinating.
And I loved the role of women, and I've always wanted to give women voice, and so I felt I could take this struggle that was going on the film in front of you, on the screen in front of you, between the open mouths and the silence. The silence from word, there's no word coming out, and I could give some words to it, so I just started to write.
And they're terrific poems.
Thank you.
I'm interested because we've selected the images for the book from the Roland Grant archive, which is based here at the museum, and I'm just wondering how you went about selecting the images.
Some images were quite close to the films, were perhaps from the films. Others just seemed to me to express what I'd been trying to do in the poem. So I'd watched the film, I'd developed a poem, and I'd seen images which expressed some of the haunting and mesmerising qualities I'd found, which may not have been necessarily from the film, but were from other silent images of the period anyway. And yes, it was quite it was not a mystical process, but there is something quite creative about choosing images to go with poems, and that's why I love the way that Hercules Editions is approaching publishing the poems, because you're giving it a context which these poems need. And you were allowed me quite a freedom in choosing the images. You didn't say it has to be the film from the poem. And so I was able to use the archive, which is an extraordinary resource, and spent many, many happy days wandering through these images. I hope people will understand when they see the two together how they're working.
I hope people will as well, and I hope that everyone will join us here at the Cinema Museum for the launch of Claire's book in May, and do have a look at the Indiegogo campaign here on this site.
All in one.